Good morning, Europe. It's Wednesday, April 20. Thanks for being with us. These are your top stories.
Western allies agreed to send more artillery, anti-tanks and air defence aid, as well as economic support to Ukraine, to help it fight off Russia's latest assault. Kreminna becomes Ukraine's first city to fall after Moscow launches its new offensive in the Donbas. Attacks intensify as Russian forces advance towards Kramatorsk. And in France, the food delivery platform Deliveroo has been fined over €300,000 for abusing its delivery riders' rights.
Kreminna is the first city to fall in Russia's new offensive in the Donbas. Russian troops have intensified their attacks across eastern Ukraine, and the fighting is expected to increase in the coming days as they advance towards Kramatorsk, one of Ukraine's strategic military hubs. Mariupol in the south is struggling to resist. Russia's defense ministry has issued a new ultimatum to Ukrainian troops barricaded in the Azovstal plant. They are offering a ceasefire if they lay down their arms. While the Ukrainian president accused Russian troops of attacking civilians and blocking the humanitarian corridors, Russia claimed Ukrainian forces are using human shields to protect their last holdout in the besieged port city.
The same radicals and neo-Nazis are openly using our military to seek cover in the Azovstal steel plant, have continuously claimed that they had civilians behind them this entire time. And this is despite the fact that they did not report this till yesterday, nor did they mention any civilians, even when the encircled military personnel moved to surrender. And in this way, they once again disclosed the truth. The civilians in that facility were only there to be used as human shields.
Shelling has also intensified in Kharkiv, where 7 people were killed on Tuesday, according to the mayor of the city. He said the Kremlin has been engaged in a non-stop bombardment of civilian districts in Ukraine's second city since Sunday.
Russia's new offensive in eastern Ukraine has prompted allies to send more weapons to help the country to defend itself. U.S. President Joe Biden has agreed with EU, NATO and G7 partners to increase economic support for Kyiv. The U.S. has also provided additional military aircraft and aviation parts to help them increase their aerial defenses. Germany will continue to enable weapons deliveries to Ukraine. According to German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, G7 leaders have agreed that a peace imposed by Russian President Vladimir Putin to end the invasion of Ukraine would be unacceptable and that Russia cannot win this war.
Our actions are guided by these principles: maximum support for Ukraine, but no NATO involvement in the war.
In his latest address, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has stressed to Western leaders the need for weapons in Ukraine, insisting that if they had access to all that they needed, the war would have been over by now. Western allies have reiterated that they will make Russia pay for the war by tightening sanctions against the former Soviet Union, stepping up financial and security assistance for Ukraine, and increase Moscow's international isolation.
On the state of Russia's war in Ukraine.
G20 finance ministers meet today in Washington. The war in Ukraine is expected to put strain on discussions. Euronews reporter Ray Suarez has the latest.
Russia says it plans to participate in the conference in Washington, even though many delegations here have made it clear they will walk out if Russia tries to take an active role. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is even trying to bar Russian participation in the G20 moving forward from today. But Moscow will be a big player in these meetings, whether they actively participate or not, because global markets have been thrown into chaos by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Both Russia and Ukraine are major world suppliers of food, fertilizer, and cooking oil. The shockwaves from the European war are driving inflation around the world and even knocking down forecasts for global economic growth in the coming year. Both the IMF and the World Bank, accompanying these Washington sessions, announced that global growth will be slowed down even as the world tries to come back from the pandemic. Financial institutions will be called upon to help out those countries worst affected by the sudden rises in the price of food and be prepared for shortages going forward, because under siege, Ukrainian farmers can't be relied upon to get a crop in the ground for harvest later this year. Europe is well represented at the conference. The Ukrainian Deputy Finance Minister, the EU Economics Commissioner, the Governor of the Bank of England, and the German Finance Minister are all participating. In Washington, I'm Ray Suarez for Euronews.
The economic effects of the Ukraine war are spreading far and wide across the world, pushing the International Monetary Fund to slash its expectations for global economic growth over the next 2 years. It now expects the world economy to expand by 3.2% in 2022, or 0.8% lower than its first estimate in January.
Compared to our January forecast, we have revised our projection for global growth downwards to 3.6% in both 2022 and 2023. This reflects the direct impact of the war on Ukraine and sanctions on Russia, with both countries projected to experience steep contractions.
European nations will see much slower economic growth as the war drives up fuel and food prices, pushing inflation higher. This means the effects of the slowdown will be felt almost everywhere, especially in the emerging and developing countries.
In Kyiv, residents are trying to return to their former lives despite the bombing on the outskirts of the capital. Some shops and theaters have reopened. A show for children is sold out. For the first time since the beginning of the war, the inhabitants are trying to reconnect with happiness. Euronews Bulgaria has spoken to the mayor of Kyiv.
What is the situation in Kyiv right now? Is the Ukrainian capital returning to normal life?
Yes, slowly we were returning to normal life, if you can call it that. More and more people are returning home. To be a guest somewhere is nice, but being at home is better. Despite the shootings that are taking place, more people have decided to come home. As mayor of this city, I must warn our people that they should not hurry to come back to Kyiv. The curfew still applies here. There are block posts everywhere. There are still many mines on the streets all around the city. Almost every day there are tragic incidents. People are stepping on the mines that are left after the attacks.
Do you expect that the Russian forces might return to Kyiv in a new attempt to capture the city?
Yes, we do not exclude such an attack. It is not a secret that Kyiv has always been one of the targets of the aggressor. Capturing Kyiv has always been one of the most important tasks for the Russian army. The Russian aggressors were not able to do it in the first attack, but they did not give up on their goal. I think it all comes down to their desire to conquer our capital.
This is Good Morning Europe. We'll have plenty more after the break.